Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Ramey. I give communication tips and strategies to leaders to help them with their personal life and their professional life. Tonight, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about core values when communicating. Core values and principles are one of those things that are so important to establish, especially when we're talking about building relationships with other people. These are ways that we govern our interactions. I find that so many people can be so lenient on situations, and they may be different in different situations, but core values and principles are the roots that really help us establish how we will govern ourselves no matter what the situation is. This is especially important when it comes to communication. Now, I'm not saying that we establish separate core values as it relates to communication. I'm saying that we have to have core values and principles that impact the way that we communicate with one another. So I have just a few to share with you that will really help you out moving from one situation to the next to really increase the impact that you intend to make on another individual when you have a conversation, especially when we're talking about a difficult conversation. Oftentimes what makes a leader is the impact that they have on others pertaining to difficult conversations, the dialogue that they have to lead or be engaged in every single day so that they can make a difference. One of the core values that I try so hard to hone in on, takes so much discipline, is being fully present. Being fully present means paying attention. Being fully present means making a commitment to not allowing technology to distract you. This is hard to do. And sometimes being fully present means that you're not trying to analyze what someone is saying, but you're really just listening and taking it all in. Once you sharpen your listening skills, what you say makes all the difference in the world after that. I always tell people that communication is much more about how you listen than what you say. And so sometimes we're focused on what we're going to say versus focusing on what it is that we are hearing so that we can have the appropriate response for what it is that we just heard. So be fully present. That might mean that you put your phone down, face down, so that way you're not so easily distracted. It's so important that we give the people who are talking to us our full attention, especially if we're talking about in a meeting where you both agreed to certain times, because their time is just as important as yours and they have decided to give you their undivided attention. So sometimes it's the least that we can do is allow ourselves to be fully present for those who have decided to put their lives aside and honor us with a meeting space. So be fully present. This is especially true both professionally and personally when we go home to our families, our children, our spouses, our parents. Anyone would love the opportunity to have a person that is fully present for a conversation, for a dialogue. It's meaningful, and this ensures that you give people, sometimes the best thing that you can give people is a listening ear. You may not agree with what they say. You may not even understand what it is they're saying, and sometimes there are certain topics you don't quite connect on. But the fact that you took the time to listen really made the greatest impact on people more than you know. So be fully present. It's a core value of something that you'd like to establish. It makes us better professionals. It makes us better people all the way around when we can be fully present and fully engaged with people who desire to connect with us. Another thing that you want to do is try not to be anxious. Don't be anxious. When we're anxious, we interrupt. When we're anxious, we interject. When we're anxious, we don't quite hear things the right way. So you need to find a way to kind of prepare your body so that you can be fully present and not be anxious when you're listening. That anxiety can really cause us to be rude. It can cause us to give advice that no one asked for. It can cause us to impose versus propose what we should be proposing in a conversation. I see this happen all the time where people are listening to something, and because they're feeling anxious or scared or fearful or angry, then they do not give the conversation the proper attention or even the listening ear that it needs so that they can have the appropriate response or reaction to what's being said. So try very hard to make a commitment to going into the conversation without being anxious first, or when you feel that anxiety boil up in your body, do your best to manage that and make sure that you understand that the anxiety in your body is probably worse than what's actually being said. So be conscientious of it so that way you know not to allow it to guide the way that you respond to what someone is going to say. Another core value I try my very best to live by, and I especially guide leaders in this, is to learn how to treat people the way you want to be treated. Sometimes, and this is where people drop the ball, they drop the ball when it comes to disagreement. We think that just because we disagree with a person, then we can put that golden rule down to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But keep in mind that sometimes people don't agree with you either. But how would you like for them to treat you when they disagree? Would you like for them to still hear you out? Would you like for them to still respect what it is you have to say, even if they disagree? This is why it's so important to treat people the way you would want to be treated, not the way you deserve to be treated, or not the way you think they deserve to be treated, or not the way other people treated you. But to take it a step further, because we're talking about leadership here. And when we say do unto others as you would have done unto you, what would you wish you would have wanted? Because not everyone agrees with what you have to say. And yet still, I think that we all hope that people still pay us enough respect to hear us out. And sometimes maybe even just to leave us be without insulting or putting us down or being condescending or being rude. These are such important values that you want to make sure you integrate in your lifestyle so that you can use them when you are communicating with others. Another thing that is a really important core value that you want to hone in on is to always be prepared to learn something new. And learning is not always agreeing, but it's learning. It's making a full commitment to learning about the world around you, a full commitment to going on an adventure, a journey of exploring our surroundings through listening, through connecting, through communicating, and allowing other people to bring some context or bring a different perspective or a different angle that you may not have considered. And when you're prepared to learn, then you're not necessarily anxious. You're just learning a new perspective. You're learning a new angle. And you can almost enjoy these difficult conversations, and you can enjoy the difficult dialogue versus being threatened by it. It is very hard sometimes when we are not prepared to learn in a conversation, because what we do is we shut information out. We put up walls, we put up barriers. And I always say this every time you have a conversation. Every single time we walk away from that just a little bit different than what we came sometimes. And that could be for the better, it could be for the worse, but you are really literally changing a person's world with your words every time we talk. And that can be a very scary process. So try not to be afraid. Be prepared to learn. It doesn't have to change what you do, but it does change what you know about life, about people, about dynamics, about perspective, about culture. So if you can approach the conversation being prepared to learn something new about the people, even if you've known this person for years, allow them to present you with new information. These things really help with some of those other core values that we talked about. Anyhow, these are just a few, but it's so important that we have principles that root the way we communicate, because it shouldn't adjust from one situation to the next. It should be that no matter what, these are the principles that I follow, and you know that you have strong principles when you're willing to follow them even when they don't benefit you. That is true virtue. What we're talking about here in leadership is that even if it doesn't benefit me, this is what I believe in because it's for the greater good, and I'm going to uphold these principles and I'm going to uphold these values no matter what. And so we may have to make sure that we're not always communicating with a commitment to our personal selves. Another thing is so important is that it's important that we are about people. Be about people. And what I mean by that is learning how to hear what people needs to, learning how to say what people need to hear versus you just saying what you want to say. Those are so important. Sometimes we're just talking because we want to talk, and sometimes I've seen some people that just love the sound of their voice. But what they're saying actually in retrospect has no place in the conversation or in the dialogue, or it wasn't helpful. It didn't move things forward. It didn't move it along. They're just expressing themselves. And I've seen that happen a lot with several leaders where they're just kind of talking in a vacuum and people are like, what? But they're honoring them because of their position. So be about people. And that especially comes out when we're talking about communicating. What do people need to hear? Pour into them. Make sure that your conversation is progressive, that your dialogue can progress, that it is responsive and not reactive. These are such important core values and principles that you want to put in place. So I've given you 5 to consider. These are not just principles, again, I say for communication, but these are just principles for life and how to interact with people in a way that is peaceful, in a way that is progressive, in a way that leads from the front, okay? So anyhow, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I hope this was helpful. You can find more communication tips and strategies in my book, Canceled, Mastering Difficult Conversations in a Modern World. It is also an audio book that you can download on Audible. Visit my website, tiaramey.com, for more training. I love coming into companies and spending time training teams on how to communicate, especially when we're talking about a multi-generational workforce. There's so many different things to assess to help us all get on the same track and develop a process for best communication. So make sure you visit my website so we can talk about how I can come in and talk to your team and help you all get on the same page. Thank you again for joining me. Make sure you share this video if you find it helpful, and I hope to chat with you all very soon.